A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Have you ever thought, I'd love to serve God in some form of mission, whether that be here in Australia or overseas? But what about our kids? Well, our next guest has a unique story about what they did with their children's education while they served in mission. Ruth Hitchens and her husband Nick were challenged with moving to Timor-Leste to serve with the amazing organisation Mission Aviation Fellowship. Well, MAF is arguably the biggest facilitator of mission around the world, with their capacity to deliver missionaries and essential supplies and resources into some of the most remote places on the planet. Well, Ruth Hitchens works with MAF and she's joining us from Timor-Leste. Ruth, welcome along.
Thank you so much, Neil.
Ruth, you were faced with really dozens of questions, weren't you, when you and Nick were asked to serve in Timor-Leste? It meant uprooting the family and moving overseas.
We knew it was at a period of formative growth for our teenage sons, and so we enlisted them to be heartful of where God was leading them as well as us as a family at the time. So that one of the important factors that was at the front of our minds and hearts was that we wanted them to be able to have opportunities down the track, and for their both educationally and socially, and for them to not in any way suffer as a result of this family move that we all individually and collectively felt called to.
And this was your lifelong dream, wasn't it, to join Mission Aviation Fellowship? But somehow or other this concern around the kids was holding you back in significant ways. There are a lot of things to respond to and lots of questions to be able to get answered before you actually say yes.
That's right. And at the time we didn't foresee that the possibilities that actually distance education would facilitate for us to be able to pursue this dream as a family.
Okay, so let's talk about distance education, because some will say, well, don't they have like international schools? Lots of countries have international schools, and maybe you could have sent your kids there. But you discovered distance education through Australian Christian College. Tell us about that.
Well, before we knew that we were moving to Timor-Leste, we were doing our homework, and this is as COVID was taking the world by storm, and no one really could foresee the impact, often devastating impact, that the lockdown. But there was definitely some conjecture around that, and I was aware of other friends in Southeast Asian countries whose children were attending international schools and who were beginning, even before Australia started to see that the lockdown started to suffer the effects of teachers returning to their home countries. So when we were getting an inkling that this was actually about to become potentially quite a problem. So yes, there are a couple of international schools in Timor-Leste doing their very best, but it's been a difficult time for many international schools globally when it comes to staff shortages, especially, and they haven't actually necessarily been able to regain momentum post-COVID. So I was just Googling, and I didn't actually know anyone else who had sent their children to the Australian Christian College. I was aware of the School of the Air that had been happening in Australia for quite some time, for decades. But when I started to do a little bit of research, just to be able to look at the options, I was very impressed to see the calibre and the longevity that Australian Christian College has been working in this sphere for a very long time, and long before distance education became a bit more of a catchword post-COVID. So they had the infrastructure in place before the lockdowns were imminent to be able to support what is increasing. It's a rising number of people are choosing actually Australian Christian College, regardless of their faith beliefs actually, but because of the flexibility, because of the quality of education, because of what it's actually teaching students in terms of life skills in the digital forum, but also with good supervision and support to be able to translate that into real life contexts. So we've been nothing but absolutely impressed.
And since you've adopted distance education, and you're doing that. Are you coming across other people who are working in missionary roles that are doing the same thing with their kids? They haven't allowed the problem of how do we educate our kids in the way that we'd like to see them. They haven't allowed that to hold them back?
We have, but what I've actually been really interested to see is the number of other missionaries throughout the Asia Pacific region who have been really keen and have subsequently joined Australian Christian College as a result of discussions concerning their concerns about their children's education because of the issues that international schools are experiencing, because of the difficulty of doing other forms of online education, especially in a country such as Timor-Leste where there is no postal service. Sounds unbelievable because we're just off the coast of Australia, but it's true. So we can't do the traditional model, which is sending textbooks or other material backwards and forwards between Australia and Timor-Leste. So that is a real issue. And even in countries like Papua New Guinea, the postal service is slow, and it can be quite a long time between teacher feedback and the students being able to incorporate that into their learning. So the instant availability of teacher support in the online, in the distance education specifically context, has been really eye-opening and quite life-changing, and has actually meant and is meaning that other families can stay for longer in the mission field and in developing country contexts as a result of the flexibility provided by the Australian Christian College.
So it really just enables you to enlarge your own scope of what you can do in mission. But let's stay with the kids for a few moments, because sometimes it's education issues that might hold us back from choosing to go and serve in mission. But what about the other issues around kids, their socialisation and how they relate to others? And are they going to lose the connections with the other kids that they have back in their home school? How does the social interaction work for kids?
I can only speak for the Australian Christian College. That's our only experience as a family, but there are a lot of social groups, a lot of online groups that meet, ranging from Minecraft groups to, I don't have girls, but there are craft groups, and there's Chick Chat, and then there's the Bros Banter for the guys, and there are other international groups being set up for other international students around the world who are actually not just those who are living remotely in Australia, but those who are living in geographically diverse locations. So there are a lot of groups, and that's just a few, but there are actually many more. There are public speaking groups. There are all kinds of, and these groups meet in real time. They're not just using text chat, like they're actually meeting, and they meet once a week. Two of my sons, our two eldest sons, have been really able to lead. One is currently leading, the one who has gone to do medicine in Australia. He led and started up one of the international student groups. So there's a lot of context to use technology to be able to facilitate, even enhance socialisation, because you have to work harder. I was a former speech pathologist, so I'm really interested in our kids having opportunities to extend their pragmatic skills, to be socially strong and confident, and to be able to not be hampered by the lack of traditional face-to-face context. So our boys have live webinars, and they also have video feeds, and then there's the online group. So that even within just the education forum, there are a lot of opportunities for socialisation. And because they're working at their own time, at their own pace, it means they can actually get to make contacts and friends in our country of Timor-Leste. So they're really well connected, and with a whole bunch of Timorese guys at their own age and stage in life. And that has actually been made more possible because we are doing distance education. So,
well, I know there'll be listeners who won't have missed the little fact that you just shared, that your son is actually coming back to Australia, and he's been educated through distance education through Australian Christian College, but coming back to Australia to study medicine. So there's got to be something in there that says, hey, this distance education is not too bad.
It's absolutely amazing. And because he was able to work in flexi time, it meant that he was getting rural and remote experience in rheumatic heart disease and tuberculosis with a big clinic team here based in Timor-Leste that he would never have had the opportunity for in Australia. No 16-year-old gets the kind of pre-medical opportunities that our son Benji had. So it's just the opportunities are endless. All of our sons have helped out at the hangar, the Mission Aviation Fellowship hangar. They've helped in basic plumbing and maintenance and cleaning the aeroplanes, and able to engage in quite diverse community service with a wide range of cultures and ages and people of a of global experience, both and also both national experience. So I would say that their opportunities, their socialisation opportunities and real life opportunities have been broadened and in no way narrowed as a result of us being able to pursue ACC in Timor-Leste.
What a breath of fresh air that is, to appreciate that having children with you serving in a mission context can actually be the most beneficial thing so far as that cross-cultural connection, the ability to be able to understand different cultures and grow with the socialisation of one culture and keeping connection to your home set of friends as well. Just quickly, what are your thoughts for people who have this dream in their heart that they would like to serve God in mission, whether it's MAF or any of the other big mission organisations reaching out around the world? What are your thoughts for those parents who are thinking, well, if I didn't have the kids to look after, I could be out doing some significant kingdom mission work?
Well, I do believe that our kids are pivotal to the future, and they are kingdom mission work. And the more well-adjusted and the more opportunities they can have, we're actually, it might seem indirectly influencing the nature of God's kingdom and mission in this world, but I believe it's actually really pivotal. And if as a family you can hold that dream and each see how God is calling you to participate in that, I'm just going to come back to the education. So distance education has actually facilitated us each to be able to pursue direct missional opportunities in Timor-Leste, because, and this is with no disrespect to those who choose perhaps a more traditional homeschooling approach as opposed to distance education. That works for some families, but distance education, because I'm the supervisor and I don't actually have to plan curriculum content, that means that I'm, as a parent, actually able to be, yes, supervising my children's education, but also be involved in some very amazing work with our medical evacuation patients at the local hospital and at the hangar. So DE has facilitated those opportunities for us as a family.
Well, Ruth,
I would say go for it.
Ruth, special honour to you and your husband Nick, serving in mission in Timor-Leste with the wonderful mission organisation MAF Mission Aviation Fellowship. And I'll point listeners to maf.org.au, and you can use that website, no doubt, to be able to make a connection with Ruth Hitchens, and her husband Nick. Ruth, thanks so much for taking some time to share your story with us today on 2020. It's
a pleasure. Thank you, Neil, for the opportunity.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.